WrestleMania in Las Vegas. A guaranteed jackpot, unless you go with a schmozz finish involving Hulk Hogan or Travis Scott. We're taking a look back at a documentary, WrestleMania IX, Becoming a Spectacle, today on Grover Served. Hi, I'm Tanner Grover. If you're like me, April is a time to celebrate. At the beginning of the month, we've got the Final Four. I love me some hoops. Then we've got Easter weekend. I love me some food. We also have WrestleMania, and I've been a wrestling fan ever since I was a little kid. This year, we've got a new documentary to take in, WrestleMania IX, Becoming a Spectacle, streaming on Peacock. That WrestleMania took place in Las Vegas, which is appropriate because this year's WrestleMania event also takes place in Las Vegas. So what a time to look back on the world's largest toga party. But before we get into the details, if you could go ahead and smash that subscribe button the way Hulk Hogan got smashed in the eye. We don't know if it was from a jet ski or maybe he had some words with Randy Savage. But either way, I'd really appreciate your support. And while you're at it, go ahead and click that notification bell so hopefully more of me shows up in your feed. A friendly reminder that Grover Served is not a spoiler-free show. Every WrestleMania over the past 3 or 4 years, the WWE has been releasing these documentaries on Peacock. This year, they're highlighting WrestleMania IX, which was billed as the world's largest toga party and took place at Caesar's Palace. Now, this particular era of WWE catches them in a time of flux. Hulkamania had run wild since 1985. WrestleMania's inception. They really came up together. He dominated the scene at WrestleMania 1, 2, 3. They tried to hand the torch over to Randy Savage for WrestleMania 4. It went back to Hogan at WrestleMania 5. Then they tried again with the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. Back to Hogan at WrestleMania 7. And once again, he closed out the show at WrestleMania 8. After that, he was a little burnt out and tried to make it in Hollywood, kind of doing what The Rock did before The Rock ever did it. There was Mr. Nanny and my favorite, Suburban Commando. But then, on the precipice of WrestleMania IX, he was ready to come back to the company. This documentary takes never-before-seen footage and gets people's reactions to it, both the talent of WWE at the time, as well as their promoters and just people involved with the corporation. So let's get into it. The documentary starts with an aerial shot of WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. At the headquarters, the WWE holds 575,000 hours of collected footage, including 30 never-before-seen tapes. Those tapes are the source material for our documentary today, where we interview people like Bruce Pritchard, who's been a longtime executive and a former WWE talent, as well as relevant talents from around that era, including Bret Hart, The Undertaker, and Lex Luger. The genuine reactions from the wrestlers and talent that are seeing this archival footage for the first time is honestly the highlight of the entire documentary for me. Wrestling is a really sacred business. You never want to peel back the curtain, but here we see good guys talking to bad guys, breaking character once in a while, and that just didn't happen in 1993. You had to protect the business. Unfortunately, the business of the event wasn't looking good, with ticket sales way down compared to years prior. This wasn't for a lack of creative on WWE's part. This was the most lavish WrestleMania ever put together. Everyone was in costume. Every worker, every member of the announce table. There were animals everywhere. This event had elephants, ostriches, a vulture, llama. Bobby Heenan rode in on a camel. We also had a well-crafted build for the event. At the Royal Rumble, we got the debut of Lex Luger, the Narcissist. I mean, this guy was impressive. Even more impressive was the debut of Giant Gonzalez. He was going to take on The Undertaker. That was going to be monster against bigger monster. And then the Rumble winner, we had Yokozuna, who was going on to face Bret Hart. Bret Hart had been an admirable people's champion, and Yokozuna, he was an unstoppable force. But even still, none of this was putting butts in seats. And it wasn't until later on an episode of Monday Night Raw, a few weeks before that Mania, that Hulk Hogan came out and they put him in a tag match with Brutus the Barber Beefcake to take on Money Inc. Then and only then did ticket sales turn around and all of a sudden interest was garnered for the event. But that question always remained. Would Hogan simply have a tag match or would some other shenanigans take place? Long story short, shenanigans. We would get shenanigans. Bret Hart would lose to Yokozuna in a match where Yokozuna would really get gassed out and kind of forget how the finish was supposed to go. Mr. Fuji fumbled around with the salt and took forever to finally throw it into Bret's eyes. Yokozuna gets the pin. Hogan comes down. Mind you, he had already competed in a tag match by this point, and we thought he was done for the evening, but he comes down and gets Bret's blessing to challenge Yokozuna impromptu, win in a 22-second match, and then look at the camera awkwardly because he has this black eye that wasn't really thoroughly explained other than he had an accident in the weight room the night before. But who cares? Hulkamania is back, baby. Red and yellow forever, or at least until he goes to WCW. Training, prayers, vitamins, it's all there in WrestleMania IX. And that's the big debate. Did they make the right call? It's interesting to hear everyone talk about it, the people who were there. Undertaker, Bret Hart, even Hulk himself was interviewed. Main event drama aside, there were plenty of other challenges, including the weather or executives from Caesar's Palace not being happy with their VIP seating. Then there were problems on the undercard. Mr. Perfect, for example, he forgot all of his spots with Lex Luger, leading him to lead the match, something he wasn't used to. All in all, it was a spectacle, but was it a spectacle for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? Before I go ahead and rate this documentary, if you can remember to subscribe to the channel, especially if you like what you're seeing here, I'd really appreciate your support. Alright, I've got to give WrestleMania IX becoming a spectacle 4 glasses of wine. It just wasn't that great. There were some mistakes, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I saw multiple clips being played repeatedly. That's a little weird. It feels a little amateurish. But what I really didn't like was what I felt was some revisionist history. We had Sam Roberts trying to convince us that the two Doiks versus Crush was a classic match. I remember it being classically bad. I mean, granted, wrestling is a buffet, but I just didn't find it very appetizing. I also found it a little weird how at the end of the film, everyone's trying to convince you that, future WrestleManias wouldn't have occurred without WrestleMania IX, because it was the first WrestleMania with a theme. We wouldn't have pirates in Florida, or Mardi Gras when it's in New Orleans. I don't know, man. I think it was just a train wreck. When you make a good documentary, I think a big part of it is telling the truth. I mean, maybe it was their truth, but I just didn't buy it. Anyways, let me know what you thought of WrestleMania IX, WrestleMania 41, or just documentaries in general. If you have a good wrestling documentary, let me know what it is in the comments. I'd love to check it out because I do love wrestling. I just didn't love this. Alright, thanks for tuning in to Grover Served.